Hello and welcome to another episode of the Recruitment People podcast. Now today we are shifting gears to focus on a pivotal moment in every job seeker's journey, the job interview. There's not many jobs that you can get without having to do an interview or multiple. So mastering the art of the interview is crucial to not only making a lasting impression, but also securing your dream job. In this episode, we're going to dive into the do's and don'ts and share essential tips and tricks to prepare you for success. So it's a big part of the whole process for a job seeker. With resumes these days, you can do a lot, but you're not going to be able to fancy up an interview if you're not prepared.
Correct.
Kelly, Charity from the Recruitment People, welcome.
Good morning.
Okay, let's pull this apart. What are the key elements of effective interview preparation that every candidate should focus on?
Okay, so you need to know your story. You need to know your resume. So if you don't know your resume inside and out, you're going to come unstuck.
Yep.
Most companies, or lots of companies, will go through your resume with a fine-tooth comb, and they're going to ask you questions about your work history, and you need to know your story. If you don't,
a lot of the questions are going to be specifically based on what they've read in your resume.
Yeah. So if you don't know your resume, you're going to look like you're telling stories.
Yep.
Just to cut it short. So you need to know your story, and you need to be able to deliver your story in a convincing way. But if you're telling the truth, there's no issues there. So preparation is around knowing your story, knowing your resume, but knowing which part of your resume aligns with the job you're being interviewed for. So if you don't know, I've applied for 20 jobs, I'm going for this interview today, that one tomorrow. Like, you need to know which job is it, what's the company about, and make sure that your skill set aligns with that advert that you're going forward for the interview today.
And probably which elements of your resume you're going to play up as much as
Absolutely.
you can
to match that. Yes. If you're talking about irrelevant things, it's irrelevant to the job advert, irrelevant to the job, you're gonna lose the interviewer, and they're gonna go, what's this about?
How important is it for a candidate to research the company and maybe their culture before attending an interview and knowing a bit about them?
Yeah, look, I think it's really important. Firstly, because you might not want to work there. If you start doing some research and you don't like what you're seeing in terms of maybe what's on their Instagram, maybe they're a company that like to go out and do lots of social activities together, maybe you're not a social person, maybe you don't like going out, there's obviously going to be an expectation to do that. So if you don't do your research, you won't know if you actually want to work there. But secondly, by doing your research, you're coming into the interview, if you do want to work there, you're coming into the interview prepared in terms of, what do I need to be to get this job? People are sociable, so you can present as the sociable person, and you can tell them that you've done your research. So they know that you're engaged in the company and you're actually actively wanting that job because you want to work for that company, not just, I need the job because I need the money. Because there is a difference between those two, the way you deliver that in your interview.
So what are some common questions that often tend to maybe trip up candidates in job interviews?
You'd think the one that everyone knows, but it still trips people up, is talk to me about your weaknesses. And
that always comes up, is it?
You know you're going to be asked, and people cannot answer that question. And the best way to answer that question is to have a weakness that you can turn into a positive. For example, I have really high attention to detail, but that can sometimes slow me down because I'm checking too much. If you're in an accounting role, that weakness is actually a strength.
Yeah.
So you're playing the game, if that makes sense. But in terms of the other interview questions, interviews trip people up in general because they're so nervous. And what I say to candidates is, be yourself. Just be yourself. If you don't get the job, you can get another job. Like, it's okay. It's a learning curve, but if you're just honest, people buy from people. So even if you flunk the interview because you didn't answer in a certain way, if you're yourself and you've got good skills, you will probably still get the job. So don't overthink too much, and always give examples. If you're asked a question about your skills, have you worked in customer service before? Or are you good at customer service? Those sorts of questions that are quite specific.
Give an example of what you've
done.
done.
I'm really good at customer service. Okay, how?
Yep.
So rather than making the interviewer say, how are you good at customer service? Give them, there was a time that I did this, and have you solved a problem before? Yeah, I'm always solving problems. Okay, how? Just so always follow it up with an example.
Okay, I'm going to test you here, Kelly.
Oh, gosh.
Okay, so I am now interviewing you for a job as a recruiter.
Okay.
Are you good at helping prepare candidates for interviews?
Yes, is the answer. So, for example, we had a candidate come to us who was very nervous, and we went through the whole process. We actually helped them research the company. I knew a lot about the company anyway, so I was able to give them the background and talk to them how they actually really matched and aligned with the culture and the person that they were going to be reporting to. So understanding all of that information was able to prepare them, and they felt confident going into the interview rather than feeling a bit, I'm on the back foot.
Yep.
So
there you go. Answered with an example. That's what I was after. I may give you a job at the end of this. We'll have to see. All right, body language. Is that a biggie? Are there some do's and don'ts? Tell me about body language in a job interview.
I think it goes back to being yourself. If you start overthinking the body language, you're going to be sitting there thinking about how should I sit? How should I be? How should I nod now? Just be engaged in the meeting that you're in. Actively engaged. It's not all about you being on the hot spot. It's actually a mutual conversation.
Sure.
So if you're on the hot seat, you need to change that around so that it is you asking questions too, because you have to know that you want to work in that company as much as the company want to know that you're the right candidate. So it's a mutual conversation. So try and make it that, but just be yourself.
Be yourself.
And be at ease.
Yep.
They'll know if you're nervous. Say, I'm nervous. I'm so nervous.
That's a good bit of advice in
Breaks
itself,
the ice.
because most people will be. Why not just say it?
Absolutely.
Up front?
That's what I say to everyone. If you're nervous, say, I'm so nervous. It breaks the ice. You have a conversation starter, and then you kind of relieve.
Also shows that you're really engaged in the process of the interview, and that you want the job, you want to impress.
Correct. Yeah.
So rather than walking in nonchalantly like you couldn't care less.
Yeah, and also if by saying I'm so nervous, you're being personable.
Yep.
Whereas if you're really nervous and
there's a human connection. As you say that, I hear it. It's just there's that automatically that you're talking about an emotion.
Yes, absolutely. Whereas if you're nervous and you haven't said I'm nervous, I'm so nervous, I want this job so much, I'm so nervous. There's the tenseness in the interview because they know you're nervous. They don't know how to help you. So if you just break the ice and say, I'm so nervous.
I hope I can say this, but I once interviewed someone and they did say that. She even said that she'd been for 3 nervous poos that morning. And it did.
TMI.
I know, but it did. It broke the ice and we laughed and that actually really...
It was open, yeah.
So,
I was going to say openness, open bowels.
All right, here's one for you. What do you do if you get asked a question, an unexpected question that you literally just can't answer?
I think you need to pause. So you need to understand, what is the question trying to ask of me? And if you don't understand the question, you need to say, I don't understand the question. You need to be honest again to say, because otherwise you're going to be just spouting things off that make no sense to the question. So just be honest, open. And if you literally can't answer that question, you're going to have to say, I don't know how to answer that question. But maybe you could turn it back into a question and say, I'm not sure what you're trying to understand about me with that question. Can you rephrase the question for me to be able to demonstrate? Because then they might ask it in a different way. You go, oh, actually, yeah, I can do this, or I can do that, and I've got an example of that. Yeah. Okay.
Interviews coming to an end. What's a great way for a candidate to leave a strong impression at the end of it as an interview's coming to a conclusion?
Yeah. Look, I think if throughout the process you're unclear perhaps on certain things that you want to know about the job, because if you're feeling that the interview went quite well and they might offer you the job, you might want to say, do I want to work here? What do I want to know? So ask questions that you want to know about the company, about the role. Maybe why is there a role? Is it through growth, or is it because somebody's left? Or why did somebody leave? Those sorts of things are their targets. You want to understand that this role is right for you. So you can start asking those questions, interviewing the interviewer.
Right.
But not too forcefully, but it is a mutual conversation. And the other thing is to ask for feedback.
Wow.
How did I do?
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Why not?
Okay, I love that. That's something I've never thought of before. Could that make a employer feel uncomfortable?
Potentially, but I think it's nice to have
I'd
feedback.
love it. No, I actually love it, but it would take me a bit of a back. And especially if you hopefully you've done well.
Yes,
and
yes.
they'd say you've done really well.
Absolutely.
And that's going to make you feel good. It's going to make them feel good that they've let you already know, because you've just brought up a whole area that I've thought of walking out of job interview.
How did I do?
Yeah, I've got no. I think I went well.
Yes.
You remember talking to friends, family? How'd you go? Oh,
Yes.
I think it went well.
Yes. And it also sometimes dependent again on the person that's the interviewer. If you ask that question and they say, if you ask it in a way that you say, how did I do in the interview? Is there anything more you'd like to know?
Oh, I love that.
Because maybe they've gone through their series of questions, but they're still unsure about you.
And then you're opening the...
You're opening the door for them to say, actually, I'm a bit concerned about your experience in inventory or whatever the area might be. Can you just tell me a little bit more about your experience there? So you're allowing them to ask you to tick a different box.
No, I absolutely love that one. Fantastic. Okay, last question. After the interview, what steps should a candidate take to follow up and keep the momentum going? And is that different if they've come through an agency versus if they've gone for a job independently?
Yes, it is different. Obviously, as a recruiter, your recruiter will be working on your behalf to understand how you got on the interview, give you feedback, and let you know if you've been successful. And they'll be following up pretty much the minute you walk out the door, I would imagine. So they'll be on it. But if you've finished the interview and it's not through a recruiter, if you want the job, I would certainly be following up with an email to say, thank you so much for your time today. I felt the interview went well. I hope you felt the same. I'm really interested in this role. If there's something you think you missed, perhaps, or maybe you didn't answer the question quite as well as you thought you could have, you could put in the email, I just wanted to clarify X, Y, and Z, but you don't want to give War and Peace. You've had your interview, so you just make it small, but it's just to touch base and say, I'm really keen. I'm looking forward to hearing from you soon.
Sure. I guess this is a real benefit to go through an agency, and a good recruitment agency such as the Recruitment People, because the process from the time it finishes is very different. You can get feedback and even have a bit of a go-between if either wants to know a bit more, or your candidate comes, like you just said, and says, look, I answered this question this way, and I really think I meant to answer it this way, which is more better. You can go back and tell the employer
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so there's so much more collaboration that can happen.
We're on the candidate side.
Yeah.
We've put the candidate forward because we think they're the absolute best fit. So when the client comes back and says, actually, we think that they're missing this or that, then we can say, why do you think that? Because when I interviewed them, they were X, Y, and Z. So maybe there's just a miscommunication and the client didn't understand something that the candidate had said, and we can clarify that. And it could be the difference between getting the job and not getting the job, because you've got somebody batting for you.
Absolutely.
You know?
Again, just another reason why we should all be using the Recruitment People. That just about wraps up our deep dive into the job interview. Look, I think we've armed people with tips and strategies today. Some of those questions to ask are a fantastic advice for anyone going for a job interview. So remember, preparation really is the key, and every interview is an opportunity for you to learn and grow. And like anything, you probably get better with them as you go. But look, thanks again, everyone, for tuning into the Recruitment People. I'm sure today's episode has equipped you with valuable insights to help you ace that next job interview and advance your career journey. Now, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on your favourite platform and connect with us on social media for more tips and advice. Now, if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes, please just reach out. We do answer all the comments there, so please let us know what you're thinking. And look, as always, Kelly and her team are here to help you, support you every step of the way. Once again, Kelly Charity, thanks so much.
Thank you.